Come on in. Come on in. Y'all come on in. Come on in. Today, this is what we want to focus on. Cash flow over everything. Come on in here. I'll give y'all a little bit of time. Give y'all a little bit of time. I'm going to share with you what we're laying out here for this year and for life forward, period. Not just this year, but forever. And as you see, the title is this year really going to focus on self. And I'm going to beat that in your head every time I get on one of these videos. I'm going to beat that in your head to invest in self. That's the only way your situation is going to change. It's going to sound redundant. You're going to get tired of hearing it, but I'm going to keep saying it because I know it to be true. Not just for me, but for a whole lot of people that have gone on and done great things. Self. I'm going to start out with a quote. And I want you to listen to this, even write it down, come back, review it, listen to it over and again, write it down, type it out, print it out. I want you to understand. It's not that you don't believe in yourself. The problem is that you do believe in the wrong version of yourself. I'll say that again. It's not that you don't believe in yourself. The problem is that you do believe in the wrong version of yourself. That's the problem. And that's where everything starts, because your situation now is just a reflection of the way you look at yourself. And a lot of you know that I'm a big fan of the Matrix series. If you watch and study that series, it talks about self so much and what you need to do to become the greatest version of yourself. I would suggest watching it over and over. Every time I've seen them all, but every time I watch them again, I learn something that I didn't see before, only because I have a newer level of understanding. So every time you have a newer level of understanding, then you understand stuff more. That goes with school, that goes with church, that goes with any learning institution you attend, even self-learning. We got to keep growing. That's what life is all about. It's all about growth. This whole thing is about growth, because if you're not growing, you're dying. I have a book coming out called Make More Money, and it talks a lot about growth. Let me show you that. This is just a printout of the book cover. And yes, that is my handwriting. I had designed that way. And at the bottom, it reads, a book on money, spirituality, and living life, with the volume up loud. And at the end of this short discussion, it's going to be short today. At the end of this short discussion, I'll give you the opportunity to get on the pre-sale list to get a special price and special VIP access to be one of the first people to get it. Now, the first batch of them is going to be in ebook format. And I want to do it that way because it's really not an ebook. It's more so, I like to call it a video book, because in the book, I inserted videos of me explaining some of the concepts in more depth. So while you're in the ebook and say, I'll talk about XYZ topic, I'll just throw one out there. I'll talk about XYZ topic, and some of the ones that may be a little bit more hard to explain, or not hard to explain, but maybe harder to understand, I inserted a video of me explaining the topic that I just wrote about. So it's more so a video book. And I wanted to do it that way to make it more interactive, because some people don't like to just sit up and look at black and white letters looking back at them. Some people just don't like that. No matter how they try to force themselves to do it, some people just don't like that. So to accommodate those people and to make it more of a multimedia interaction, I said, you know what? I can just put some links in here, and it's almost like a course in a book. So that's why I call it a video book. Now I see it's getting kind of popular right now, and I've tried this concept before. It worked out pretty well. So with that being said, I'm going to offer it to my friends on Facebook, my friends on YouTube. Before I just do a massive marketing launch on it, I'm going to offer it to the people that are closest to me, because that's how it should be. Those are the people in your proximity. Those are people who are really interested in you and have watched you for years and years and years, and want to soak up some of the nuggets you may have to offer along the way. So I'll be attaching information on that. I'll let you become one of those VIP persons, especially like in the first couple of weeks, because the first couple of weeks I just opened it up, like I said, to my warm market, the people that are in my vicinity, the people that are in my influence circle, and then it'll grow from there, because I've written that best-selling book before, which was hell. It was Hell, because it was my first time doing it. I didn't understand what it took, and I didn't understand, there are some shortcuts and some other ways to do stuff. But hey, I didn't know. I just had to do it, and that was in 2013. So now, 7 years later, this is a follow-up book, and it's almost a kind of a sequel to the last one that I wrote. But I've grown a lot. I've learned some new things. I have advanced my thinking, and some of the stuff that I believe then have changed to this point now. So I feel like it's a part of my evolution. And I want to share it because there's an even greater world out there. And I want you to be open to bigger possibilities for yourself and not just to look at the other people and say, well, they're successful and I wish I could do this and I wish I could do that. But for you to be one of the ones that really participate in your own success. And I know that making more money will help you do that. Now, am I saying you'll be a millionaire? Nope. Am I saying you'll be a billionaire? Nope. I'm not even saying you'll be a thousandaire. Because everybody doesn't want to be that. Everybody doesn't have the goal or wish or dream to do that. You may want to just make an extra $500 a month, extra $100 a month to pay some extra bills or start a fund for your kids. You might just want to do something like that, which is fine. But this is the way it's got to happen. And I want to set this foundation on the front end, because here's what happens. A lot of people who take courses and read books and all that kind of stuff, they're looking for the book or the course to do the work. And that's where they go wrong. So they'll read the book and they'll take the course, or most people don't even finish courses. Honestly, I think 90% of people don't finish online courses when they take them. They just don't. But what happens is when they don't get the result, they don't blame their lack of execution. They blame the product or the book or the seminar or even the teacher or the mentor, because it's easier to do that than it is to take responsibility. It's easy to say, hey, I know I just read 2 pages of this 200-page book, but it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So it's your fault. Give me a refund. Give my money back. Or they may invest $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 in this mentoring program that may be 8 weeks long. They participate I've seen this so many times. They participate 2 weeks, and because it's too challenging and too hard for them, they'll quit, but then they'll blame the mentor and say, well, give my money back. It's not what I thought it was. When the fact of the matter is, you're not who you thought you were. So I'm going to constantly challenge you to look within. I'm going to constantly challenge you to look within, because I guarantee you, if you took a real solid look at yourself, you'll see why your situation is the way that it looks based on who you are right here. Because your outer world, when you look out into the outer world and see what it looks like and to see the way you perceive everything, it's because of what's going on in here. There's an ancient wisdom, an ancient tenet that says, as above, so below. So if you look at the world and you see a world full of abundance and opportunity and prosperity and wealth, that's because you feel that way on the inside. But if you look at the world as downtrodden, evil, decrepit, there's something wrong, I'm never going to get ahead, I'm going to talk about that too in a second, then that's what you're going to get. Now, I want to go back to that, and I'm glad that thought just came to me, because a member of my family, I'm not going to say the name, used to always say, I'm never going to get ahead. Like, that was the saying. I'm never going to get ahead. I'm never going to get ahead. Like, constantly, that was the conversation with herself. I'm never going to get ahead. And guess what she manifested? Never getting ahead. So you got to watch how you talk to yourself, because even when you're talking to somebody else, you're talking to yourself first. You're talking from yourself first. So there needs to be, Mr. Michael Jackson says, it starts with the man in the mirror. It definitely starts with the man in the mirror. I just had a thought, and I want to read this quote to you. And I've said it before. I've even posted it before, because all this is coming back to you. Because in order for us to get to where cash flow is cash flow of everything, then it's got to be you over everything first. So as you're going through this and you're thinking about hiring somebody to teach you, or you're thinking about buying a book, you're thinking about having a mentor, you're thinking about getting someone to help you in some kind of way. You may have a product, you may have a service, you may be an artist, maybe an author, you may be a consultant, maybe a stay-at-home mom. You may be a trash man. It doesn't matter. But when you're going to look to somebody for some help, I need you to show up the right way. I want to read this quote to you from Bruce Lee. We used to love Bruce Lee. We had, even growing up, we had a movie club. I was the vice president. My brother was the president. So we saved, this was like 80s, early to mid 80s. So Kung Fu, all those movies. Let's see, we watched wrestling, we watched Kung Fu, we loved the Freddy Krueger movies, we loved the Friday the 13th movies. So we would save our little allowance money. We'd have meetings and everything. And on Fridays, we'd go to, this is when Blockbuster was a thing. In my little hometown, there was only one Blockbuster. Really, we only needed one Blockbuster anyway. So we would make a trip to Blockbuster. Was a Hollywood Video. It was Blockbuster. We go to Blockbuster, take our little, because to rent movies then was like $1.50. I don't even know if it was that expensive. So we would have our meetings or whatever, and we vote on the movies. And Friday, my big brother Peanut, Lloyd Yarbrough, may he rest in peace. I miss you, man. He would drive us to Blockbuster, and we pick our movies out. And so we come back and we watch all the movies, and we were so enthralled with Bruce Lee. Like, Bruce Lee was everything. It was always, Bruce Lee was like the A movie. Whatever, Enter the Dragon, whichever movie it was, Bruce Lee was always the A movie. So we watched like 2 movies first, and then the Bruce Lee movie was always last. That we loved him that much. And I never knew about what type of wisdom Bruce Lee had until I got later on in life, and I started studying mindset, motivation, wisdom, things of that nature. When I started studying high-level thinking, I didn't know Bruce Lee said so much profound stuff. I didn't know he was so much into mindset and balance and wisdom and higher thinking and equality and social justice. And see, they didn't show all that in the movies. And I never saw a lot of interviews that he did outside. But this guy, if you go look up Bruce Lee quotes, just Google Bruce Lee quotes. I mean, he said some stuff that was so far ahead of his time that it was ridiculous. And it makes sense why he was so advanced in his discipline, because here he was so much more above everyone else. I mean, the guy's thinking was just otherworldly. So I'm gonna read this quote to you. It's Bruce Lee speaking. A teacher, a really good sensei, is never a giver of truth. He is a guide, a pointer to the truth that the student must discover for himself. A good teacher, therefore, studies each student individually and encourages the student to explore himself, both internally and externally, until ultimately the student is integrated with his being. Bruce Lee. That just comes back to say it's all on you. As slang would be, hip-hop slang would be, it's all on you. Because we're looking for somebody to blame. We're looking to hold somebody else accountable. Now, disclaimer, there are situations to where there are barriers, more barriers for other people. There are more barriers for this group than this group. Let's just put that, that's the truth. That's just the way it is. But that does not mean that you still can't go out and accomplish the same things because you had to take lane 3 instead of lane 4. So we're going to, abolish all excuses. We're not going to accept any excuses. And that's a foundational principle. And I know I sound redundant, but I'm doing that on purpose. I want to sound redundant because I want you to know every morning you look in the mirror, you're deciding who you're going to be that day, and you're ultimately deciding what life you're going to live tomorrow. That happens every day. So if you get up complaining, whining, moaning, that's on you. And you say, well, no, sometimes I wake up and I don't feel right, or I feel bad, or I wake up with a headache or whatever. I want to bless you with some wisdom from Reverend Ike. Reverend Ike, Eichenkrauter is his full name, but Reverend Ike was one of the first prosperity preachers back in the 60s, 70s, 80s. And for a Black man to be teaching prosperity principles back then, because most of the time it was hell, fire, brimstone, and everybody's going to hell and all that kind of stuff. Reverend Ike has studied some of the, I call them the new thought leaders. Reverend Ike had discovered there was a new way to think. There's a different way to think. And especially during his times when the civil rights movement was going on, and we used to hear Dr. Martin Luther King and Ralph Abernathy and Malcolm X and all those guys, and that's great. However, there was another viewpoint, and his wasn't really that popular. And I'm sure teaching the kind of discipline that he taught back then was extremely difficult, because he thought wealth, health, prosperity, I want to be rich. I think he owned like 9 or 10 Rolls Royces, and it was ridiculous. And he got a lot of scorn for it, but it's simply another way to look at it. And once I discovered, I never heard of Reverend Ike. And I was like, the old saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. When the student is ready, the teacher appears. So when I started studying Reverend Ike, and I'm like, he was teaching this back in the 60s and the 70s. He was. And he taught a whole lot about wealth building, mindset, motivation, wisdom. Like, look up Reverend Ike on YouTube and just listen to some of the stuff he's saying. It's like, it's so far advanced. It's a totally different way of thinking, even from a black man's point of view, which back then was, he was really different than everybody else, which, just like anything, any other spectrum, you got to have everything along the spectrum to have totality. So he had his, but he was just so far right and everybody else was left that I know he found challenges. I know he did. And when I'm listening to him talking, I'm like, how are you even saying this back in the 60s? So one of his favorite quotes I like is, the more you work your mind, the less you have to work your behind. The more you work your mind, the less you have to work your behind. You see, he had figured out that, working hard 8, 9, 10, 12, 16 hours a day for X amount of wages, you got to be making some money for someone else that's up the food chain somewhere. And then back then, wages were so low that he was like, okay, there's something wrong with this. If I'm working 12, 16, 18 hours a day and I'm driving a hoopty, but I look at my boss is making this, then there is an imbalance in value somewhere. And I got to figure out what that is. Now, that's just one of the tendency things. But the reason I came to Reverend Ike was simply because he gave me a new way to look at things, but he still had he had the preachy vibe. So growing up, I had the preachy vibe. So he had that. So he would always just some of the stuff he said was kind of crazy. Actually, it's making me laugh thinking about it. But he said the more you work your mind, the less you have to work your behind. And also, going back to when I was talking about when you look at the mirror in the morning, Reverend Ike said, you got to tell your feelings how to feel. You got to tell your feelings how to feel. It blew me away when I heard that, because I'm like, wait a minute, because we always assume that how we feel, we have no control over. We're just like ambushed by these feelings. And all of a sudden, 5 minutes ago, I was happy and now I'm sad. Well, Reverend Ike said, no, take constructive control of that and say, feel good. I want to feel good. And I'm going to pound it in my head. I feel good until I feel good. And you know what? It works. It absolutely works. So I just wanted to share with you today about taking responsibility for yourself, and don't look at somebody else. It's okay to have a coach, a teacher, a mentor, parent, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's what you bring to the game that decides if you win the game or not. So I'm going to have some tools and resources here shortly. The one thing I want to talk about today, though, is I want to gauge your interest in, like I said, I got the book coming up, and I'm going to start taking pre-sales for it here in a little while. Like I said, here's the print cover. Make more money. If you want to be put on the VIP list to get in line to get the Make More Money book, then just put me in the comments below. Me will be simply, that'll give me an idea of how many to prepare for, because that's just going to be the foundational level. There's also going to be an audio book. There's going to be a worksheet that comes with it. There's also going to be a masterclass I'm going to teach on it also. So today I was just gauging the interest to see where everybody is. Are you interested in something like that? Because right now I'm just teaching basic level stuff. This is stuff just coming off top of my head, but there's a lot more to it. It gets a lot deeper, but you got to set the foundation first. Just like when you build a house, you got to set the concrete foundation first, let it dry before you start building on top of it. So talking to you about self and talking to you about little simple things like telling your feelings how to feel has to be the foundation to build the ultimate empire that you want to build. Now, if that's not you, and you're just here for the entertainment and you like to have fun and some of my jokes are funny and you basically think some of them not, if you're just here to learn, I'm cool with that. But I'm really looking for those people who really want to invest in themselves. And we'll start at this level and go up from there, because ultimately there'll be classes, because I've been doing that for the last, 10 or 12 years. So there'll ultimately be classes, and you'll come into my office with me, not come in physically, but literally into my office here. And I'll be teaching just like I'm teaching right now, right here in front of my lion and my library and everything. I'm just at the point where I'm going somewhere, and I'm going somewhere really high. and I want to take a few people along the path with me. That doesn't mean we're going to the same place. That means I'm becoming the greatest version of myself, and I want to take a few people with me that want to become the greatest version of themselves. And I know I can do that because I've done it several times over. But now, instead of just having private classes, I said, I'm just going to put it out there and allow the universe to bring me whoever so will. Like, you know how when the pastor stands up at the end of the church and says, whosoever will, whoever wants to go, let's go to the top. Now, I say make more money because a lot of stuff is based on money, but it's really about becoming the greatest version of yourself. That's the version of you that you need to believe in order for you to become everything you want to be, to do whatever you want to do and have whatever you want to have. The answer to all your problems, every single problem you have right now, you have the answer to it. And that answer is the greatest version of you, not the greatest version of me, not the greatest version of your mother, not the greatest version of your father. The greatest version is you. And we can start on that path together because I'm definitely going there. I've even got to a level where I even want to go higher. I want to press myself to be I want to press myself to be as big as I possibly can be. That's my goal. So I want to inspire others to be the greatest versions of themselves. So just like we're running on a track, all lanes are separate, but we all go in the same direction. So I'm in lane 1. So I'm looking for people that want to get in lane 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and on into infinity. So if you're one of those people who want to lock in, I'm pre-selling them right now. If you want to lock it in, just put me below. And in a couple of days, whenever we finish the sales page and all that stuff, I'll put links down there. But I want to gauge right now who all is interested. So just put me down below. That's all you got to do right now. Invest. The only investment right now is putting me below if this is something that you want. So with that being said, I just want to drop in on you and say hey to everybody, inspire you to keep living your dreams. And remember, I'm going to drill this in your head until you get tired of hearing it. Until you get tired of hearing it. I'm going to say it again. To build wealth, you got to first build yourself. To build wealth, you got to first build yourself. So don't forget, put me below if you're interested in getting on the pre-sale list for the book. I'll be releasing it here pretty soon. I have the links here. I'm just gauging it to see where everybody is, because not everybody will, but those that do, we're going to tear it up and have some fun. So